These are the entities born from the very will of heaven, standing on the razor's edge between blinding light and unfathomable darkness. From the burning Seraphim that encircle the throne of God, to the fire-breathing Leviathan coiled in the abyssal deep. From the Nephilim, the progeny of forbidden unions between heaven and earth, to the ever-spinning Ophanim, the living wheels of eternal justice. Each creature is a living symbol, a puzzle piece in the grand eternal struggle between divine order and primordial chaos. These are not just tales for a campfire. They are revelations, fragments of a truth so immense it can only be glimpsed through metaphor and myth. And if you dare to step through the hallowed gate with us tonight, that door will swing wide open. We promise you the conclusion of our journey will reveal a truth about yourself you never expected. Before we descend into the depths and ascend to the highest heavens, I want you to do something for me. Pause for a moment and comment below where in the world you are listening from and what time it is for you. It is a profound encouragement to our team to see how far these sacred mysteries travel across the globe, uniting us in a shared quest for understanding. Now take a deep breath and let us begin. There are truths we have long sought to forget, to file away under the heading of myth or allegory. But these beings are not simple stories. They are not angels in the way we imagine, nor are they demons in the way we have been taught. They are instead sacred mysteries, entities born from the very will of heaven, occupying the liminal space between the purest light and the deepest shadow. Imagine the Seraphim, the burning ones who fly in ceaseless adoration around the throne of God, their very existence a song of fire. Picture the Leviathan, a serpent of incandescent flame hidden in the crushing blackness of the abyss. Think of the Nephilim, the offspring of forbidden unions between the celestial and the terrestrial, giants who walked the earth. And consider the Ophanim, the terrifying, eye-covered wheels of eternal justice, spinning without end. Each of these beings is not just a character in a story. They are living emblems, fragments of the eternal conflict between divine sacred order and the untamed chaos of the primordial void. These are not merely narratives, they are revelations. And for those who have the courage to approach the holy gate, the entryway to a deeper understanding will now be opened. Let us first journey to a place where no light has ever touched, where the layers of water are so dense and still that time itself seems to have frozen. In the crushing depths of the oceanic abyss, the Leviathan stirs. This is not just some colossal sea creature, it is a vision, a primal nightmare made flesh, the whispering echo of a chaos that has never been fully subdued. It represents the untamable, the terrifyingly vast, the power of nature that exists beyond human comprehension or control. In the ancient book of Job, as Job wrestles with his suffering and questions the justice of the cosmos, God does not offer simple platitudes. Instead, he challenges Job's human perspective with a question that reverberates through eternity. Can you pull in Leviathan with a fishhook or tie down its tongue with a rope? This is from Job, chapter 41, verse 1, and it is a question that requires no answer. It is a rhetorical masterpiece designed to humble the human ego. For Leviathan is not a creature to be captured. It is a force to be feared, a power to be respected. The text describes it in terrifying detail. Its scales are like tightly fitted shields, impenetrable to any spear or harpoon. No weapon that is fashioned against you shall succeed, could well have been written of its hide. It breathes fire, its breath is a searing furnace, capable of setting coals ablaze. Its sneeze flashes forth light, and its eyes are like the rays of dawn. Its roar, a deep guttural tremor, sends shockwaves through the very foundations of the sea. When it rises, even the mighty are terrified. They retreat before its thrashing. And yet here is the most staggering paradox in all of biblical cosmology. God himself created it. This is the detail that transforms Leviathan from a mere monster into a profound theological enigma. A being that seems to embody all that is chaotic, destructive, and terrifying is, in fact, a deliberate creation of the divine. In Psalm 104, verse 26, the psalmist writes with a sense of wonder, "There the ships go to and fro, and Leviathan, which you formed to frolic there." To frolic, a plaything, a source of divine amusement in the hands of the Almighty. This single word, frolic, reframes everything. Leviathan is not an enemy to be vanquished, but a permitted expression of power, a symbol of a wildness that God not only controls, but perhaps even delights in. It is not Satan. It does not embody malicious evil or a desire to usurp God's throne. It is rather the personification of a power that utterly transcends human control, but remains perfectly, almost playfully, within the grasp of God. There is a common confusion that must be addressed. In the book of Revelation, chapter 12, another creature appears, a great red dragon with 7 heads, described as the one who swept 1/3 of the stars from the sky. Many have mistakenly conflated Leviathan with this figure, the ultimate rebel. But the distinction is critical. Leviathan is not a rebel against God. It is the embodiment of natural amoral chaos, not of purposeful malevolent intent. It does not rebel, it simply is. It is fierce, free, and untamable by human hands, serving as a living test for our capacity for awe and reverent fear. This distinction is crucial because Leviathan, however terrifying, is never depicted as being outside of God's ultimate authority. This brings us to a shocking and powerful passage in the book of the prophet Isaiah, chapter 27, verse 1. "In that day the Lord will punish with his sword, his fierce, great, and powerful sword, Leviathan the gliding serpent, Leviathan the coiling serpent. He will slay the monster of the sea." This is one of the rare biblical passages that describes the ultimate destruction of Leviathan. But why? Not because it is inherently evil, but because its time has passed. In the eschatological vision, the final day, all chaos will be resolved. Every untamable thing will be brought back into the fold of divine order. Leviathan, the ultimate symbol of that primordial chaos, will no longer be necessary, for the eternal light of God will illuminate everything, even the deepest, darkest corners of the abyss. In the realm of theology, some of the early church fathers, like Origen and Augustine of Hippo, saw Leviathan in a more allegorical light. They viewed it as a powerful image of worldly, secular power, the great, brutal empires that seemed to defy morality and justice. They saw the reflections of Leviathan in Babylon, in Egypt, in the Roman Empire. These were the Leviathans of their eras, terrifying forces that made humanity tremble, yet which were permitted by God to exist for a specific time, often to test the faith of his people. In their eyes, Leviathan was not just a sea dragon. It was the embodiment of any force that leads humanity to believe it can control the universe without acknowledging God. It is the arrogance of power, the pride of empire, the belief in self-sufficiency. So what is the ultimate lesson of Leviathan for us today? It teaches us that there are forces in our lives and within ourselves that we cannot control, cannot fully understand, and cannot tame. There are sorrows, fears, and upheavals as vast as the deep sea, as searing as fiery breath, which we cannot resolve with conventional logic or simple effort. But if Leviathan is God's creation, then even when we cannot comprehend it, we can trust that God's hand is still upon it. Chaos, in the biblical sense, is not the absence of God. Rather, it is the very forge where our faith is tested and tempered. Perhaps in our own spiritual lives, each of us has a Leviathan. It might be a deep-seated wound, a persistent doubt, a dark night of the soul where our faith feels lost. And just as in the book of Job, God does not command us to defeat our Leviathan. He simply points to it and says, "Look at it, it is there, and I am the one who made it." that is not the end of the story, but perhaps it is the beginning of true, profound, and transformative reverence. Now, let us turn from the chaotic depths of the sea to the solid, unyielding earth. In the same book of Job, as the man of Uz is writhing in his suffering and doubt, God does not offer a gentle word of comfort. Instead, he points to another colossal creature and declares, "Look at Behemoth, which I made along with you." This declaration, found in Job chapter 40, verse 15, is not a threat but a profound awakening. In presenting Behemoth, God does not offer an answer to the problem of suffering. He reveals his presence. He does not explain the pain. He provides a living, breathing image of a power that quietly undergirds all of creation. Behemoth is no ordinary animal. The text describes it as the first of the works of God. A behemoth indeed, a giant molded from clay and divine breath. Its limbs are like bars of iron, its bones like tubes of bronze. Its tail sways like a mighty cedar tree, and its hide is impenetrable to any arrow or spear. It lies peacefully under the shade of the lotus plants, undisturbed by the raging currents of the river or the petty ambitions of humanity. No one dares to approach it. No chain can hold it. And yet, for all its immense power, it does not destroy. It does not conquer. It simply eats grass like an ox. It exists in a state of tranquil, colossal peace, a silent lesson in controlled strength. For centuries, scholars have debated its identity. Some say it is a hippopotamus, others a prehistoric dinosaur that survived in human memory, and still others a mythological creature now lost to time. But the crucial point is not what Behemoth looked like, but what it represents. In Jewish tradition and midrashic literature, there is a belief that Behemoth resides at the ends of the earth, just as Leviathan dwells in the deepest sea. These two creatures are said to represent two opposing poles of existence, order and chaos, and it is foretold that they will both be awakened on the final day of judgment. Behemoth is potential power, held within a disciplined framework. Leviathan is wild, untamed power. One is as serene and stable as the land. The other is as turbulent and unpredictable as the ocean. When we read the book of Job closely, we notice something extraordinary. After God finishes his descriptions of Behemoth and Leviathan, Job is silenced. He asks no more questions. He no longer demands to know why he has suffered, because in witnessing the sheer majesty of God, expressed through these creatures that are so far beyond human understanding and control, he finally understands. He grasps that there are realities that transcend his intellect, but do not have to transcend his faith. Behemoth becomes the ultimate symbol of sacred order. It stands as a sentinel at the boundary between the natural world and the divine, reminding us that there are powers in the universe not created to serve humanity, but to humble it. It does not rebel, but neither does it slavishly obey human commands. It simply exists, powerful, immovable, a mirror reflecting our own smallness before an unfathomable creator. In Behemoth, we find neither victory nor defeat, only the undeniable presence of something too great to be conquered and too serene to be ignored. In our modern world, a world that worships action, speed, and expressive power, Behemoth offers a powerful counter-narrative. It reminds us that true strength can reside in stillness, in quiet endurance. Perhaps you feel as though you are sitting still, not accomplishing great, visible things. But within you, you may be cultivating a resilience, a faith as mighty as Behemoth, capable of moving mountains. There are people who are like Behemoth. They do not need to shout or prove themselves. Their mere presence is enough, stable, profound, and deeply rooted. They live under the watchful eye of God as an integral part of His creation, and their very existence is a powerful testament. Behemoth does not speak, but in its silence there is a thunderous echo. Let us now ascend far beyond the earth and the sea to a realm higher than any heaven. beyond the reach of human sight, to a place where the light is so blindingly pure that nothing can remain hidden. Here, the seraphim fly, circling the very throne of God. In the magnificent vision recorded in the book of Isaiah, the prophet finds himself standing in the temple as the glory of the Lord fills the space, and the smoke of incense billows like a prayer ascending to heaven. And there he sees them, the seraphim, the burning ones. They are not burning with ordinary fire, but with the unquenchable flame of pure holiness. Isaiah writes, "Each of them had 6 wings. With 2 wings they covered their faces, with 2 they covered their feet, and with 2 they were flying. They call out to one another in an unending chorus, a divine antiphon. Holy, holy, holy is the Lord Almighty. The whole earth is full of his glory." This passage from Isaiah chapter 6 verses 2 and 3 is unique. The threefold repetition of the word holy, the trisagion, is the only time in the entire Bible that an attribute of God is emphasized in this way. It signifies absolute completeness, the untouchable perfection of God's glory. Even the seraphim, the celestial beings who exist in the closest proximity to God, dare not look directly upon him. They cover their faces not out of terror, but out of the most profound and overwhelming humility. They do not stand still like sentinels. They are in perpetual motion, flying in a ceaseless orbit, as if their love and adoration can never be contained or paused. They are not messenger angels, nor are they the cherubim who guard holy places. The seraphim are pure spiritual fire, beings consumed by holiness so radiant that their very presence is a prayer. In the face of this vision, Isaiah, a mortal man, cannot stand. He cries out in anguish, "Woe to me, I am ruined, for I am a man of unclean lips, and I live among a people of unclean lips, and my eyes have seen the King, the Lord Almighty." But a seraph did not offer words of comfort. It acted. It took a live coal from the sacred altar with tongs, touched it to Isaiah's lips, and declared, "See, this has touched your lips. Your guilt is taken away and your sin atoned for." That moment is a revelation in itself. Divine holiness is not merely something that makes us tremble in our unworthiness. It is also the very fire that purifies us. In Christian theology, particularly in the celestial hierarchy detailed by the early Christian theologian Pseudo-Dionysius the Areopagite, the seraphim are considered the highest order of angels. Dionysius describes them as beings who are perpetually set aflame by their perfect and unending love for God, moving constantly like rays of light flaring from a sun that never sets. They do not need to understand the why of their existence. They simply worship, because the presence of God is reason enough. The seraphim are the living embodiment of the great commandment found in Deuteronomy chapter 6:5. "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength." They fulfill this not with words, but with their entire being, not with reason, but with the unadulterated fire of divine love. When we contemplate the seraphim, we see more than just fire. We see worship in its purest, most undiluted form, untainted by self-interest, unmotivated by personal gain, and unbound by time or ritual. In our noisy, modern world, where worship can so easily become a habit, a performance, or a mere formality, the seraphim are a stark and powerful reminder. Worship is not primarily an act we perform, it is a state of the soul. We may not fly around a celestial throne, we may not have 6 wings or angelic voices, but deep within every human heart, if there is even a tiny spark ignited by the love of God, then in that small, sacred space, a seraph is smoldering. And who knows, perhaps when our prayers are truly sincere, when our hearts tremble before the beauty of the divine, we too are echoing that same timeless refrain, "Holy, holy, holy." Let us now consider the cherubim, the guardians of glory. When most people hear the word cherub, they imagine plump, winged infants sitting on clouds with tiny harps. cherubs from Renaissance art. But the Bible tells a very different, far more formidable story. The biblical cherubim are not sweet symbols of innocence. They are awesome, majestic, and radiant beings, placed by God Himself at the threshold between the holy and the profane to guard what is sacred from all that is unclean. Immediately after Adam and Eve were exiled from the Garden of Eden, the book of Genesis tells us that God placed on the east side of the garden cherubim and a flaming sword flashing back and forth to guard the way to the tree of life. This, from Genesis chapter 3, verse 24, was not an act of vengeance, but an act of profound mercy. For if humanity, in its fallen, sinful state, had returned and eaten from the tree of life, they would have been condemned to live forever in that state of separation from God, a sentence with no escape. The cherubim, with their ever-moving sword of fire, became the vigilant guardians standing between eternal life and spiritual death. But that is only the beginning of their story. When the prophet Ezekiel was lifted up in a spiritual vision, he saw something that defied language. Strange, living creatures, each with 4 faces, that of a man, a lion, an ox, and an eagle. Their bodies were covered with eyes, and they moved in perfect unison with gigantic glowing wheels. Whenever the Spirit of God moved, the cherubim and the wheels moved with it, never deviating, never turning back, never leaving their appointed path. Ezekiel understood that he was witnessing the very mobility of God's glory, and the cherubim were the ones who carried that glory. They do not speak, they do not sing praise. They are not sent out as messengers like other angels. They remain in the direct, unmediated presence of the Holy One, and their very silence is a command. In the tabernacle, and later in the temple in Jerusalem, 2 cherubim fashioned from pure gold were placed above the Ark of the Covenant. Their wings touched, overshadowing the mercy seat, the very spot where the presence of God was said to descend. No one was permitted to touch that sacred space, except for the high priest, and then only once a year, and only after offering a sacrifice of atonement for the sins of the entire nation. This holds a profound symbolic meaning. The cherubim do not merely guard, they also point the way to reconciliation. Between those golden sheltering wings, God would speak and give His commands. In their 4 faces, we see the fullness of creation directed toward the Creator, the wisdom and intelligence of a human, the majestic strength of a lion, the diligent service of an ox, and the transcendent, far-seeing vision of an eagle. St. Augustine, writing about the cherubim, called them a fullness of knowledge, beings who reflect the light of truth and guard the memory of divine justice. He suggested that if a person were to truly encounter a cherub, they would be unable to lift their head because the cherubim's gaze penetrates the soul. They do not need to interrogate. Their mere presence is enough to force a person to see themselves as they truly are. And in contemplative thought, perhaps each of us has an internal east of Eden, a place in our hearts where God has stationed a cherub. Is there a memory that has been sealed off, a path that has been forbidden? Not as a punishment, but to protect something sacred within us from our own profanity. Perhaps true holiness is still waiting for us there, but we can only approach it when we are humble enough and purified enough to draw near. The cherubim do not block the path of the penitent. They only bar the way for those who carry their pride before them. And between their outstretched wings, grace still reigns. Now we venture into a time before the great flood inundated the world, a time when humanity roamed the earth like children who had not yet learned fear. In this epoch, another race existed, a race of giants known as the Nephilim. The book of Genesis, in chapter 6, verse 4, states cryptically, "The Nephilim were on the earth in those days and also afterward, when the sons of God went to the daughters of humans and had children by them. They were the heroes of old, men of renown." This brief passage, pregnant with mystery, has shaken the foundations of theology for millennia. The Nephilim were the product of a forbidden union, an event that should never have occurred, but did. But who were these sons of God? For centuries, biblical commentators have offered several interpretations. Some believe they were fallen angels, celestial beings seduced by earthly beauty who abandoned their heavenly station. Others propose they were the descendants of Seth, Adam's righteous lineage, who were called to live holy lives but instead intermingled with the fallen lineage of Cain, corrupting their sacred calling. A third interpretation suggests they were powerful human rulers, kings who deified themselves and took wives as they pleased. Regardless of the specific interpretation, the common thread is that a sacred boundary was transgressed. And from this transgression, a race of beings was born that was too large, too powerful, and too arrogant to exist for long within God's intended order. The Nephilim were more than just physically large. They were symbols of a monstrous pride, a fusion of divine power and human lust. They became legendary warriors, tyrants who were worshipped as demigods, and they filled the earth with violence and chaos. And God, grieving to see the world so corrupted, finally acted. The Great Flood was not just a punishment. It was an act of purification, the sorrowful sigh of a creator witnessing what humanity had made of his creation. But the Nephilim did not vanish from collective memory. Much later in the book of Numbers, chapter 13, when the Israelite spies scouted the promised land, they returned with a terrifying report. We saw the Nephilim there. We seemed like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and we looked the same to them. This image was not just a product of fear, it was a deep-seated collective memory of a power that had once existed and perhaps still lingered in other forms. Many scholars suggest that figures like Goliath, Og of Bashan, and other giant warriors mentioned in the Old Testament might have been seen as distant, lingering descendants of the Nephilim, historical ghosts who survived the flood. In non-canonical Jewish texts, such as the Book of Enoch, the narrative is expanded dramatically. It is believed that the spirits of the Nephilim, after their physical bodies were destroyed, could neither ascend to heaven nor descend to the underworld. Instead, they were cursed to wander the earth as malevolent spirits, giving rise to demons and false gods. They belong to no order, not heaven, not hell, and remain forever as dislocated symbols of an unredeemed rebellion. And this story continues to repeat itself in deeply human ways. Whenever power is deified, whenever humanity mixes God-given gifts with a lust for domination, whenever morality is discarded in the pursuit of strength, the Nephilim are reborn. They no longer need to be giants in stature. They can be a tyrannical system of government, an arrogant individual, or even the unpurified ego within our own hearts. Each time we believe we are strong enough to live without God, a part of the Nephilim spirit rises within us. And if we do not turn back, an internal flood will surely come to wash it all away. The Nephilim teach us a chilling lesson. Not everything that is great is good, and not all power is a blessing. Some things that appear glorious on the surface are born from a dangerous mixture of divine potential and human pride, and they always, inevitably, lead to ruin. While the world praises the strong, the Bible consistently honors the humble. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. The Nephilim knew nothing of spiritual poverty. They are a living cautionary tale for every generation. When the sacred is dragged down by worldly lust, the result is never a blessing. There are beings in Scripture that belong to no earthly category, unlike any creature humanity has ever known. They come not from the earth, nor from the heavens. They emerge from the abyss, a place locked by divine chains, opened only when God commands it. In the book of Revelation, chapter 9, when the fifth angel sounds his trumpet, a star falls from the sky to the earth, and the star is given the key to the shaft of the abyss. When he opens it, smoke billows out like the smoke from a gigantic furnace, darkening the sun and sky. And out of the smoke, a swarm of locusts descends upon the earth. But these are not the locusts of the fields. They are not the kind that devour crops. They are the kind that scorch the soul. They have the faces of men, the hair of women, the teeth of lions, and wear breastplates of iron. The sound of their wings is like the thundering of many horses and chariots rushing into battle. Their tails, like those of scorpions, carry a venomous sting, but strangely they are forbidden to kill anyone. Their mission is to inflict torment. For 5 months they torture humanity, causing such agony that people will long for death, but will not find it. And most terrifying of all, they are not a mindless swarm. They have a king who rules over them, the angel of the abyss, whose name in Hebrew is Abaddon, and in Greek is Apollyon. Both names mean the destroyer. This terrifying scene is not a meaningless nightmare. It is a symbol of a highly specific, targeted judgment. The locusts are commanded not to harm the grass, the trees, or any green thing, as if nature itself is exempt. Their target is humanity, specifically those who do not have the seal of God on their foreheads. The horror here is not just their grotesque appearance, but the message they carry. When grace is rejected, pain will be administered as a final, desperate wake-up call. Many theologians do not interpret these locusts as literal, physical creatures. Instead, they see them as a powerful allegory for profound spiritual anguish, the internal torment of a soul that has been separated from God, but has not yet been cast into final destruction. It is a state of living damnation. Others see in them the shadow of future warfare, with descriptions that eerily echo modern machinery of destruction, or perhaps even insidious ideologies that destroy the human soul with beautiful lies. Whatever the interpretation, one thing remains clear: they do not act on their own accord. The abyss is not a realm of random chaos. It has a structure, a hierarchy, and a discipline. And like everything else in the book of Revelation, it operates only by the permission of God. God does not create evil, but He can and does permit it to act within certain boundaries, to expose what is hidden, to test faith, and to purify the soul. Just like the plagues of Egypt in the book of Exodus, this swarm of locusts is not sent to destroy the natural world, but to shake the human heart. In Exodus, the locusts devoured everything the previous plagues had left behind, a symbol of the compounding consequences of a hardened heart. But in Revelation, the locusts of the abyss do not eat leaves. They consume the conscience. They attack the spiritual life within. And perhaps that is the most frightening thing of all, a pain that cannot be escaped, a truth that cannot be denied, a judgment that will not be silenced. In our own spiritual lives, we may have tasted a small measure of the locust's venom. Those moments when nothing can soothe our conscience, those days when our soul feels as if it is being scorched from the inside out, for reasons we cannot explain. This is not always a punishment. It could be a purification, a final warning, or the knocking at the door of an internal abyss we have long tried to forget. The locusts do not come to end the story. They come to give us one last chance to turn back before the door of grace closes for good. And if there is any comfort to be found in this terrifying image, it is this: they are only permitted to do what God allows. The abyss does not open itself. The key is, and always will be, in God's hands. There are visions in the Bible that leave the reader utterly speechless. Not because they are difficult to understand, but because they unveil a reality so far beyond any symbol our language can contain. The vision of the prophet Ezekiel is one such experience, a spiritual earthquake where he witnessed a celestial chariot, a throne vehicle borne by fiery living creatures, and moving in perfect harmony with them were wheels, spinning ceaselessly, intersecting one another and covered with living, gleaming eyes. The Ophanim, that is their name, the wheels of all-seeing vision. In Ezekiel chapter 1, he writes, "The appearance of the wheels and their workmanship was like the sparkle of beryl, and the four of them had the same likeness. Their appearance and their workmanship were, as it were, a wheel within a wheel. When the living creatures moved, the wheels moved beside them, and their rims were high and awesome, for the rims of all four were full of eyes all around. This is not a description of a machine. It is a living symbol, at once mechanical and mystical. It is as if God allowed Ezekiel a glimpse into the very mechanics of the universe as seen through divine eyes. The Ophanim are not bound by flesh. They have no wings, carry no swords, and sing no hymns. They turn. They are always turning, always moving in the direction of the Spirit, never deviating, never looking back. Every movement is perfect, every direction precise. They do not lead, nor do they control. They are the embodiment of absolute intelligent obedience, operating within the perfect order of heaven like flawless gears in a divine, error-free mechanism. But what makes the Ophanim most astonishing is not their shape, but their eyes. Each wheel is covered with them, front and back, inside and out. These are not physical organs of sight. They are a symbol of infinite awareness, of omnipresence. They represent a vision that is not limited by time, space, or matter. The Ophanim do not just look, they see. And in their seeing, all secrets are laid bare, all falsehoods are incinerated. In Jewish mystical tradition, and in the hierarchy of Dionysius, the Ophanim are considered the second highest order of angels, just below the Seraphim. If the Seraphim are burning love, the Ophanim are moving wisdom. They do not burn, they revolve. They are the wheels that carry the very throne of God, suggesting that wherever God's presence is, a divine mechanism of perfect order and awareness is operating in tandem with it. Some modern theorists, particularly in the ancient astronaut school of thought, have likened the Ophanim to a kind of celestial technology, a divine machinery far beyond human capability. But to look deeper is to realize that the Ophanim are not a vehicle. They are the embodiment of divine coordination. Wherever the Spirit goes, the Ophanim follow, not ahead, not behind, not in reverse. And that, perhaps, is their greatest lesson for us today. The Ophanim teach us that true wisdom is not about knowing everything. It is about knowing how to turn in the right direction, following the movement of the Spirit. There are people who possess brilliant intelligence, far-reaching vision, and sharp reasoning, but they refuse to turn in accordance with God's call. Their wisdom, however full of eyes it may seem, is like a wheel spinning off its axis. The Ophanim do not turn for their own sake, they turn for the sake of the one they carry. And when they move, the universe moves with them, a sacred symphony where every note carries an eternal purpose. What about us? Are our choices, our actions, aligned with that holy movement? Or are we straining to turn a different wheel, one that spins endlessly but goes nowhere? The Ophanim do not speak. They have no sermons to give. But if we listen closely, we can hear a whisper echoing in every motion of the world. Turn with the Spirit, lest you turn yourself into a lost and wandering path. Now, let us draw near to the very center of heaven, to the throne of God itself, a place of unceasing light where every created thing bows in adoration. Here, surrounding the throne, are four living creatures. They are not angels, not humans, not beasts. They are a reflection of all creation, a living echo of holiness, the breathing pillars of a universe sustained by the presence of the Most High. In the book of Revelation, the Apostle John recounts his vision. In the center, around the throne, were four living creatures, and they were covered with eyes, in front and in back. The first living creature was like a lion, the second was like an ox. The third had a face like a man, the fourth was like a flying eagle. The lion symbolizes wild, majestic power. The ox represents patient strength and service. The man signifies intelligence and reason, and the eagle embodies transcendent vision and spiritual speed. Four faces, four corners of the earth, four essential natures of the created world. And each creature is full of eyes, before and behind, above and below. Nothing escapes their gaze. They do not sleep, they do not rest. Day and night they never stop singing, "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty, who was and is to come." But this song is not merely praise. It is a creative force. It is a wave of power that reverberates through all the heavens, a harmony that causes the entire universe to bow down without needing a formal invitation. In the vision of Ezekiel, these same creatures appear, carrying the very throne of God, moving in perfect, synchronized motion with the wheels of the Ophanim. When they move, the glory moves with them. When they stand still, the divine presence covers everything, like dawn spreading across the water. Some theologians have seen these four creatures as a spiritual blueprint for the four Gospels. The Gospel of Mark emphasizes the power of Jesus, the Lion of Judah. Luke focuses on his humble service, like the ox. Matthew presents Christ as the King of the Jews, the Son of Man. And John, like the eagle, soars into the highest mysteries of his divine nature. But whatever their specific symbolic meaning, one thing is undeniable. They stand closest to the throne. Not the messenger angels, not the glorified saints, but these strange creatures who remind us that all of creation is called to worship. Not just humanity, not just souls, but the lion and the ox, the eagle and the man, united in one eternal song. Perhaps this is why we, in our own nature, carry aspects of them. We have a strength like the lion, but it can easily turn to violence if not sanctified. We have a capacity for service like the ox, but we can be crushed by the burden if not upheld by God. We have the reason and choice of a human, but that intellect is easily clouded by pride. And we have an aspiration to soar like the eagle, but if we do not fly toward the light, we will become lost in the clouds. The four living creatures do not just sing, they pose the greatest question of all. Which part of creation's worship will you reflect? Will you sing with them, or will you turn your back on the throne? We may not be in the center of heaven, but if our hearts are properly oriented, every breath can be a note in that song. And who knows, perhaps when we quiet our souls and truly pray, we are joining our voices to that ceaseless, eternal anthem, "Holy, holy, holy." There are visions that do not come to comfort. They come to warn, to open our eyes, to remind us that behind the placid facade of the world, a silent war is raging. In the 12th chapter of the book of Revelation, a great dragon appears in the heavens. It is enormous, its color a fiery blood red. It has 7 heads and 10 horns, with 7 crowns upon its heads. This creature does not crawl on the ground like a common snake. It soars through the celestial realms, coiling itself amongst the clouds where only saints and angels are meant to dwell. And with its great tail, it sweeps 1/3 of the stars from the sky. A portion of heaven falls. 1/3 of the angelic host, seduced by darkness, lose their way from the light and become the first rebel army. That ancient serpent does not hide in the shadows. It positions itself directly before a pregnant woman, a figure of immense symbolic weight. She is clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and on her head a crown of 12 stars. She is an image of the people of God, of Holy Israel, of the Church, of the Virgin Mary, or perhaps all of them combined. As the woman goes into labor, the dragon waits, ready to devour her child the moment he is born. But heaven does not stand idly by. The child, the one who will rule all the nations with an iron scepter, is snatched up to God and to his throne. And then a war unlike any other erupts in heaven. The archangel Michael and his angels fight against the dragon. It is a battle waged not with swords of silver or shields of bronze, but with testimony, with faith, and with an absolute loyalty to the light. And the dragon is defeated, not by brute force, but by righteousness. He is hurled down to the earth, along with his rebellious entourage. But he does not disappear. He becomes filled with fury, unleashing his rage upon the inhabitants of the earth, especially the rest of her offspring, those who keep God's commands. and hold fast their testimony about Jesus. If you have ever felt that you are under attack by nameless things, a spiritual exhaustion, an unexplainable opposition, you may be on the enemy's list. And strangely enough, that can be a sign that you are on the right path. The dragon is not just a mythological beast. He is the spirit of domination, of lies, and of manipulation. He wears crowns, but they were not given to him by God. He has many heads, but they do not bring wisdom, only division and deception. He is the incarnation of Satan, the ancient serpent who deceived Eve, the one who prowls around like a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour. But the most important truth about this dragon is that he has already lost. He still roars, he still deceives, he still creates structures of power, cultures of death, and false doctrines, but his root has been severed. The dragon no longer has a throne in heaven. He only has a short time on earth, and he knows it. And we who live on the earth where the dragon was thrown down are called not to fear, not to hide, but to stand firm. The scripture says, "They triumphed over him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. They did not love their lives so much as to shrink from death." If you find this story resonating with something in your own life, a battle you are facing, a call to stand up, a sense of awakening, then this is the place for you. Because on our channel, we don't just tell stories. We learn to identify the dragon, we learn how to confront him, and we learn how to live in the victory of the Lamb. When the Lamb begins to open the seals, the foundations of the old world begin to tremble. One seal at a time, judgment unfolds, not to unleash chaos for its own sake, but to strip away the masks of the world. And with each broken seal, a horseman emerges. They offer no greeting, require no introduction. There is only the sound of their hooves, echoing like the ticking of an eternal clock counting down to zero. 4 horsemen, 4 stages, 4 faces of the fall. The first rider is on a white horse. From a distance, he looks like a savior. He holds a bow, wears a crown, and rides the horse of victory. But look closely. He carries no sword of justice, speaks no word of truth. He is the impostor of salvation, the ghost of deception dressed in the robes of righteousness. He is a conqueror disguised as an angel of light, spreading control in the name of peace. He represents the trading of authentic faith for raw power, a darkness that is brilliantly white. The second rider emerges on a fiery red horse. In his hand is a great sword given to him not to conquer nations, but to take peace from the earth. War erupts. Brother turns against brother. Trust dissolves, leaving only suspicion and blood. This rider does not create the war. He merely exposes the rot that was already in the human heart. The third rider is on a black horse. He holds not a weapon, but a pair of scales. And a voice cries out, "A quart of wheat for a day's wages, and 3 quarts of barley for a day's wages, and do not damage the oil and the wine." He is the symbol of injustice, of a discriminatory famine, of a world where human beings become commodities in the hands of the powerful. Food becomes a luxury, life becomes a negotiation, and justice is weighed in silver and gold. The final rider needs no introduction. His horse is a pale, sickly green-gray, the color of disease, of corpses, of dry bones that were never buried. His name is Death, and Hades follows close behind him. He does not shout. He needs no weapon. He simply passes by, and life recedes from the land like mist under a burning sun. But here is the strangest detail of all. All 4 horsemen are summoned from the heavenly realm. They are not sent by the devil, nor are they a random accident. Each one is called forth when the Lamb, Jesus Christ himself, opens a seal. Judgment is not something God enjoys, but it is something he must do when humanity rejects mercy time and time again. The 4 horsemen do not break anything that was not already cracked. They simply expose the fractures that were already there. So what does this have to end with you, listening to these words in our modern world? Perhaps you see a flicker of the first horseman in the polished lies that are presented as beautiful truths. Perhaps you have felt the sword of the second horseman in a bitter argument that could not be reconciled. Perhaps you have felt the hunger, not just of the body, but of the soul, in a world where what is right is sold for what is easy. And perhaps you have walked alongside death without even knowing it, in a long night devoid of prayer. If these images are stirring something in you, then you are in the right place. Our goal is not to run from the vision, but to understand it, to stand firm within it, and to know with certainty that after the judgment there will be a new dawn. He is silent and swift. He has no name, no form, no clear description in the sacred text. He is simply a presence, a quiet shadow in the night, a final punctuation mark that needs no warning. The angel of death does not appear in the heavenly choir. He has no song to sing, no brilliant light to display. He moves like a still wind, yet every locked door trembles at his touch. On that dark night in Egypt, the night of the first Passover, as the Israelites huddled inside their homes, the blood of the lamb smeared on their doorposts, something happened. There was no thunder, no earthquake. There was only the passing of death. At midnight, the Lord struck down all the firstborn in Egypt. He did not ask questions. He did not hesitate, and only the houses marked with the blood of the Lamb, the sign of obedience and faith, were spared. He did not look at social status, did not consider merit. He looked only for the blood. Later he appears again in the time of King David, when the king in his pride conducted a census of the people without God's command. The angel descended. 70,000 men died. And as the angel raised his hand over Jerusalem to destroy it, the Lord said to him, "Enough." He stopped immediately, not because he felt pity, but because he does not act on his own will. He is not a malevolent demon. He is the sword of God, precise, swift, and absolutely obedient. On another occasion recorded in the second book of Kings, he visited the camp of the Assyrian army. In a single night, in a single moment, 185,000 soldiers fell like dry leaves in autumn. There was no battle, no screams, only a spreading, bone-chilling silence. Some fear him. Some have given him names like Azrael or Malik al-Maut. The names change across cultures, but the meaning remains the same. No one can escape his gaze. No one can halt his advance. But he is not the devil. He does not come to destroy senselessly. He comes when he is commanded. He passes only through the doors that God has opened. And sometimes he does not come with a sword. Sometimes he comes as a quiet messenger, opening the door for a soul to depart, not to destruction, but to the one who has been waiting for them. For the wicked, he is the blade that severs their illusions. For the righteous, he is the bridge between earth and heaven. There is a deep theological reflection here. Death is not the end. It is the final revelation. It reveals who the true master of our soul is. This nameless angel has knocked on countless hearts. Perhaps he has not come for you literally, but every time you have confronted the fragility of life, every time a loss has left you speechless, every time you have suddenly asked yourself, "If I were to die today, am I ready?" Perhaps in that moment you have heard his footsteps in the distance. He comes not to frighten, but to remind us to live each day as if it were our last, and to die as if it were our first moment of meeting the one we love. Amidst the blood-soaked pages of Scripture, the fiery visions, and the trumpet blasts of judgment, there is a quieter sound. It is as thin as the wind, yet as cold as the grave. It is the cry of the Satyrs. These are strange beings, half man and half beast. They are not angels, not demons. They do not appear in holy places, nor do they emerge from hell. They have no glory, no mission. They exist only in the places that God has abandoned. In the prophecy of Isaiah, chapter 34, amidst the desolate ruins of Edom, a stronghold consumed by fire for its arrogance, the prophet describes the scene. There the wild beasts of the desert will meet with the hyenas, and the wild goats will call to their companions. There the night creature will settle and find for itself a place of rest. The Hebrew word for wild goats is Seraphim, often translated as Satyrs. It is a chilling, apocalyptic image. A once living city, now nothing but a stage for the echoes of desolation. Satyrs do not come to destroy. They arrive after the destruction is complete. They are ruins that can cry out, the living souls of lands that were once holy but have been profaned. The name itself, from the Hebrew Satyr, means hairy one, but it can also be understood as a goat demon or a wandering shadow. In ancient Near Eastern cultures, such liminal hybrid creatures were symbols of moral collapse and primordial chaos. They have no order, no purpose, only aimless motion amidst the rubble. The cities they inhabit were once bustling with life, with music, with prayer. Now there is only the sound of wind whistling through broken stones and the dance of the satyrs. Not a dance of joy, but a dance that mocks the ruin of those who thought they were immortal. No angel remains. No divine word is spoken. God has left. And when he leaves, the satyrs appear. They are a silent warning that many ignore because they do not roar or perform miracles. They simply dance beside empty tombs. And if we listen closely, their cry is not one of victory but of mourning. In our spiritual lives, a place that is abandoned will not remain empty for long. A heart that ceases to pray will be filled with another sound. A community that no longer worships will be inhabited by other spirits. A faith that is nothing but empty ritual becomes a hollow shell, echoing with a strange, eerie laughter in the night. The satyrs are a symbol of what happens when the sacred is turned into a habit, then forgotten, then abandoned entirely. They kill no one. They don't need to. Their very presence is enough to make all life shudder. The final question is this: is there any land in your own soul that has become so desolate that satyrs could appear? And if so, do you have the courage to invite God back into that place? And so we have journeyed through 12 realms of being, each a revelation, not to inspire fear, but to awaken faith. They are not meant to satisfy our curiosity, but to touch the deepest parts of our spirit. They are echoes from the highest heavens, whispers from the abyssal deep, and a constant reminder that this world is more than what our eyes can see and our ears can hear. There are forces moving in the spiritual realm, and we only begin to understand the Bible fully when we dare to step into the land of symbols, of shadows, of mysteries that have no easy answers. 12 creatures, each with a different form, a different voice, a different time of appearance. Yet all of them serve as an eternal mirror, reflecting the true nature of the world, of humanity, and of God himself. From the quiet immensity of Behemoth to the fiery chaos of Leviathan, from the burning holiness of the Seraphim to the desolate dance of the Satyrs, every one of these biblical entities is a living symbol. They represent not only the presence of God, but also the aspects of reality we often wish to avoid. Our pride, our sin, our inner chaos, and even death itself. So what is the lesson we must take away from this journey? It is that the Holy Scripture is not just a collection of stories. It is a divine mirror. These strange and wondrous creatures were not recorded to entertain us, but to remind us that all things holy have a terrifying depth, and that God is not confined to our comfortable, sanitized images of himself. He is the creator of all things, both the light and the limited darkness he permits. As Isaiah 45:7 says, I form the light and create darkness. I bring prosperity and create disaster. I, the Lord, do all these things. God remains in absolute control, even of the things that are beyond our comprehension. The book of Revelation was not written to frighten us, but to fortify our faith. Its seemingly terrifying images are, in fact, a loving and urgent wake-up call. Be alert. Keep your lamp burning. We are living in a spiritual world. Though we may not see or hear the hoofbeats of the horsemen, the spiritual battle is raging within our hearts, our families, and our societies. And the one who holds fast to their faith is the one who has already won, by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. If you have followed us this far, it is likely because God is stirring something within you, a desire to understand His Word more deeply, a yearning to live not just for the flesh, but for the soul. Hold on to that fire, do not let it die out. Because the truth is, while the creatures of the Bible can be terrifying, the one who created them is the one who loves you with an unchanging, unending love. Thank you for journeying with our channel on this profound exploration today. If this message was meaningful to you, we invite you to subscribe, to become part of this community, and to share this with your friends and family so that more people can have their faith deepened and their minds opened. And be sure to return tomorrow, because we will be stepping into a new video, one that is just as compelling and just as deep, and you will not want to miss it. Until then, may you rest peacefully in His grace. We will see you tomorrow. Remember to click the notification bell so you won't miss what's coming next.